Talk Reading Comp. I like this first passage. It opens with that rhetorical question, why not perfume? And you know, of course, the point of that is to give us the main point of the passage. And the main point of the passage goes on to compare perfume to works of art, and then to say, well, maybe one of the reasons why not perfume is the, corporate bean counters. Okay. With that in mind, as I head into the main point question, I really liked answer choice C, except if the whole passage was, why not perfume? Perfume is art. Let me lay out 3 paragraphs asking and then answering that question, and a final paragraph that finishes by saying, perhaps one reason. Then I think I could really get on board with an answer choice C that says the corporate nature of the perfume business may be one reason it's not treated as an art. And C, as written, is close to that, but it isn't that. It's much too strong. Is the reason? Come on. Nobody even said it was the reason. We said it might be one reason. Answer choice D, on the other hand, 3/4 of the passage directly devoted to dealing with that exact issue. That's what you want from your main point answer. All right. For question number 2, when would the author get on board with tampering with the perfume? And, what she really didn't like is when they took shortcuts to make it cheaper. But what about if you fixed the mistakes that they had made? And that's what answer choice E is saying, and that's exactly the kind of thing that the author would get on board with, right? To fix the cost-cutting measures that she disdains in the final paragraph. I don't know if you were attracted by C, but in the second and third paragraph, we talk about both great artists and great perfumers using synthetics alongside natural substances. So it's not a problem to use synthetics. Question 3, the word noses in line 29. So you just go back to line 29. What's she talking about? She's talking about talented, obviously not noses, talented people who experiment and then produce. So people who make perfume, or perfumers, if you will. For question 4, we just have to be able to point to some place in the passage where she said that thing, right? I'll go to maybe line 40. The perfumer can devise an imaginary world, just like a great composer or a painter, in calling on our capacity to discover some memory. Perfumers, composers, painters, when they're creating art, they're doing so by calling on our capacity for memory. And there's your answer choice A. For number 5, same thing, right? I mean, back to the passage. What does the author say? I'm in, line 14, right? She mentions Henri Almera's Joy Parfum, and you don't have to send me your letters concerning my pronunciation. I know it was perfect. And yet the parallels between what ought to be regarded as sister arts. So what does she say about the Joy Parfum? It is a sister to those other forms of art. It is not less. It is equal to. And that's where you get the support for answer choice B. It's not less important. All right. Number 6, the cynical bean counters. And what did they do from the passage? We'll start there, In the passage, these cynical bean counters don't hesitate to tamper with old formulas. They insist on the substitution of cheap chemical compounds. So what do we want to do? We want an answer that has somebody meddling in a cost-cutting way with the final product. Answer choice B gives us a perfect analog for that, right? You meddle with the director's vision in order to save costs, in the same way that those bean counters were meddling with the formula in order to save costs. For question 7, again, back to the passage. What does the author say? And I'm in maybe line 50, and these international bean counters are substituting cheap chemical compounds in order to increase profits. So what do we know for sure? Profitability isn't a measure of quality, because in order to be more profitable, we can substitute in cheap, lower quality components. So that's how we know for sure that B is true. That leaves with only question 8. So you want to talk about the organization of the passage, and notice we've already kind of answered this question while we were talking about like main point and stuff. We started with the question, like, why don't we deal with perfume? We spent 2 paragraphs fleshing out the answer, or I guess we should say fleshing out the comparison that leads to an answer. Art is like this, perfume is also like this. And then a final paragraph where we offer a possible answer to the question. So, why not perfume? I mean, after all, perfume is like art. Well, maybe it's those bean counters, or maybe that's part of the answer. And look how answer choice D just point by point hits on that. First paragraph poses a question. I can say what the question is. Why not perfume? The middle paragraphs present a case that helps justify posing that question. After all, art is like this. Perfume is also like this. And then the final paragraph presents a possible answer. And I love that because that's what it did exactly, perhaps one reason. And that finishes off this passage. All right, so in that video I showed you why all the right answers are right. I didn't show you how I read the passage. How I read the passage in such a way that I can anticipate most of the questions I'm going to be asked and the right answers to those questions. I didn't show you how I select which passage to do. I didn't give you a method of dealing with reading comp. That's because I think that's where the value's at. Now, if you agree with me that having a methodological, systematic means of kicking the LSAT where it counts is worth paying for, then check out that link and you can see a list of our current course offerings and prices. And if you don't, that's cool too. Keep making as best use you can of these free videos and tell all your friends how awesome we are. Although if you thought that was awesome, wait till you see what's in the paid courses.